Good morning, everyone, and welcome back again to another segment of Cooking with Carrington. It's been a while, but we're so glad to see you guys again. We're so glad to have you with us. And we're going to do something a little bit different today. You know, we got this fall weather. I don't know what it's like around the country, but everybody's got this fall weather. It's autumn. I felt like being a little fall-y today. And we're going to do something that is going to be a little bit different using quite a bit of the same um, products that you're used to using this time of year. All right. So what we're going to be making today is something we call it not your auntie's sweet potato. I know most of us do sweet potatoes with butter and sugar, brown sugar and cinnamon and nutmeg, and we grind it up and we throw them in pie dough and bake those off, or we just slice them up and put a bunch of some molasses, kind of sweet stuff on it, put it in the oven and bake it. Oh man, we do so many different things. The marshmallows on top, the coconut on top, the pralines on top, man. Ooh, they all so good, so good. But around the world, sweet potatoes are used in a number of different ways. So we're going to do something today, which is a kind of a blend of an East African and a little bit of Indian dish that we'll do. That is a nice, warm. Mm, you come home from work, it's really pretty quick to make. It's tasty. You can freeze it. It freezes well. You make it and put it in little containers. Put it in your freezer. It heats well. It doesn't get a lot of ice crystals or anything, and doesn't come out watered down when you heat it back up. And it's a sweet potato soup with apples and peanuts. I know you go say, "Oh, what?" Yeah, but when you taste it, because it's a very clean cuisine type of dish. What I mean by that, very clean, it's healthy, it's tasty, but we're not using a lot of oils or a lot of processed anything in this particular soup. And I don't even like to call it a soup, it's really a potage. And that would be French for a thickened puree and as a soup. So it's really hearty and warm, and you can make it as loose as you want or as tight as you want. You can actually grind it and use it as a side dish on a plate. I like to use it as a soup or a potage, and I think you'll enjoy it. So as we move forward, first thing I want everybody to make sure you have your oven set to 350, so that we're going to go ahead and we're going to toast off some raw peanuts. So I've got shelled ones in the shell. They're raw, not salted or toasted or anything. If you have toasted ones and salted, that's fine. If you have the Planters peanuts that are already unshelled, that's fine. Also, I just like to go and get as close to the natural state as I can with things like this. So here we are. On my peanuts, if we look, so here's the shells. I'm going to show you. To open your peanut shell, you want to just look, the shell goes elongated in this fashion. So what we do is we just squeeze lightly and you'll hear it open along the elongation, and you'll see the shell just opens up for you. All right. Then we take that peanut, we're going to put it right on the tray. This tray has no oil on it. It has no butter on it. It has no kind of lubricant, which a lot of times when people toast things or roast them, they put some sort of spray or oil or something along it. This doesn't, because one thing, your peanuts have a wonderful, wonderful oil that's going to come out that increases the flavor and intensifies the flavor. Um, we all know that this peanut was it's not a an item that hasn't been around for centuries, but it's an item that was actually kind of overlooked for years until a gentleman named George Washington Carver came along and realized all the uses for it and taught the world the uses for the peanut. So that's just a tidbit of history. George Washington Carver, go look him up if you don't know anything about him. He's an amazing man. All right. Tuskegee Institute. There you go. All right. So I'm going to put these in the oven now. Our oven's on already. I'm going to put them in the oven for about probably about 5 to 7 minutes or so, just to bring the flavor out, to get those oils to rise and give us some flavor. And then we're going to set it aside, and we're going to use these at the end of the dish. It actually we'll chop them a little bit, and it's going to actually add texture into that potage. Here we go. So we're gonna go over to the oven. Oven's on 350. Pop it in. And I know a lot of us don't like to use our timers, but you know, we've been doing this a long time. So we always want to make sure that we use our timers whenever we put something in the oven. And I'm going to tell you one of my secrets with that is that we want to make sure that that the oven, if a recipe says, oh, bake it for 40 minutes or bake it for 30 minutes, I always like to bake, unless it's a bread, I always like to set my timer on maybe 3 to 5 minutes less time, because my motto is you can always cook it more, but you cannot cook it less. Okay? So while that's going, I have gone over and we've got our pans getting ready to get hot. And this is going to be maybe a pretty quick dish. And if we have time, I'm going to actually put another dish on. I'm going to put another dish that I'm going to show you with sweet potatoes, which is a East Indian dish. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, so we add our peanuts in. We'll wait for the timer. We're going to just go ahead and we're going to take an onion. All right, we're gonna just dice this up, and it doesn't have to be too small, doesn't have to be too big, because we're gonna sweat it down. And so I showed you guys how to cut an onion before, always from the root in. If you want to keep your tears down, it'll keep you from crying. Go in, don't cut all the way through, pull back so that you can get a little leverage there. Then we come to the other side, we do the same thing, and then we pull the onion back. And then what we can do, we need to, we'll just take a little pop, and we should be able to peel that skin off. Look at that. You don't have to stand there and scrape it with your fingers and do all those other things that's going to make those oils come out and make you cry. The funny part about this is people don't realize those oils have a lot of sugar in them. And that's what we're going to use in here. That's going to give a little bit of sweetness into this dish. There'll be a couple things. We're going to use a little bit of apple juice and the onions. So we're going to sweat these onions down with the sweet potatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut these onions. Just a nice large chop on them. I know it says diced, and it can be a large dice or a small dice, but I like to do it so that we can get as much flavor out of them as possible. And we're just going to put those in. And you guys notice in this recipe, we're starting to cook a little bit healthier, guys, because we're getting a little older, and we really have to watch how things go and how we work. And if you'll notice, we'll start having dishes a little bit more plant-based, using a lot less of processed products, a lot less of oils and butters and things like that. Me being French classically trained, I am taught that butter is your friend. But now me, at my age, is taught that butter may not necessarily be your friend. So we're trying to come back on some of those items. I mean, it doesn't mean that we lose flavor. That's the key. The flavor is still going to be great. Oh, and we can talk about these sweet potatoes. I know you say, well, how big sweet potatoes should we buy? So about 2 pounds or so. Sweet potatoes, I know growing up, everybody's like, make sure you get the small sweet potatoes. They taste better. Make sure you get the smaller sweet potatoes. They're easy to peel. And here's the funny part about that. I found in my career, the size doesn't really make the difference in the flavor. What the size does for me, it just makes it easier to handle if I'm using a smaller one. But for this particular dish, we're not even going to peel it. So if you notice, we washed them really good, scrubbed them up, and we're gonna just go ahead and use leave the peel on. Why are we leaving the peel on? Well, when we peel a sweet potato or most anything that the peel that's edible on, when we peel it, what happens is we end up taking off the membrane that runs in between the skin and the actual flesh of that item. And in that membrane is where a lot of the nutrient values are. And we end up just reducing the nutrient value as we're doing preparation. So when you have a dish like this, we don't need to peel it. All we need to do is wash it, get it nice and clean, and then we can cut it and keep that peel on. Again, back to that trying to be healthy, getting healthy. I think there's a question on the rise.
Question, chef. The age-old question. What's the difference between a sweet potato and a yam?
Age-old question: the difference between a sweet potato and a yam, and that is a great question because sweet potatoes originate from the patata, and they're indigenous to South America. They said they came there from Polynesia to South America, mostly in Peru and Chile, centuries ago. The yam is a derivative of that. Again, we're talking about GMOs, genetically modified organisms. These items, GMOs, have been around for years, and most things have been produced and changed, and to for a number of different reasons, and mostly for in the latter part of the century, mostly to produce more foods for the larger populations. So again, if you go through the West Indies, they have yams and they're all white. If you go into Japan and they have the sweet potato, some of them are white, some of them are purple, some of them are different colors. Those are all just different derivatives of the ancient patata from South America by way of Polynesia. And I would like to say it probably got from to Polynesia from Africa. Great question. Okay, here we go. Pan is getting hot, and we don't want it too hot. We just need it hot enough, so we're going to start getting those flavors to come out. And what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to add is my onion. And we're going to add the onion. There we go. You want to hear that? You want to hear that pot speak to you? We hear that? What that is, what you're sizzling, what you're hearing is the moisture that's in the onion and the sugars starting to come out. And that's what we want. You should be able to start smelling, and what you're smelling are the sugars. Now, I know we just talked about being healthy and everything else. So one of the things I know, anybody that's eats bacon, one of the greatest flavors is bacon and onions. Yeah. And the reason is that the sugar in the onion comes out, and it caramelizes, and it gets in with the smokiness and the curate of the bacon, and that's what gives it this wonderful, wonderful flavor profile that we have grown to love, especially in our American cooking, mostly in lowland cooking. That's what we've grown to love. So we're going to just go ahead. We're going to saute this up just a little bit, and I'm going to put a top on it so that we can get some sweat going. And we're going to use this top here. It's a little bit larger, but what we're going to do, I'm going to lower our fire a little bit. And the next thing we're going to add, I'm going to add a little bit of garlic while that's cooking. So it's going to toast up, get some nice flavor. Even if you guys are making soups, when you cook when you cut your onions and carrots and celery from now on, you don't have to put oil into it, okay? You can just get your pan hot and get those veggies in there and get them toasted. And once they start toasting, then you'll have your good flavor profiles. All right? Stir it a little bit. I don't know if you can smell that yet. We have any questions?
No questions yet, chef.
All right. Anybody smelling it?
Yes, chef.
All right. Put that top on there. All of that is flavor that you're smelling. So we're going to add a couple cloves of garlic to this. All right. And I've showed you guys how to cut the garlic also. And again, I don't want to pre-cut all these things and just have them laying around and waiting, and I can just dump them in a pot. I want you guys to see the actual process, because when you're doing this at home, nobody's going to pre-cut it for you. Nobody's going to have it set up for you, and again, this is a quick dish for on a nice cool afternoon, or a quick dish for dinner in the week. So this is how you're going to be working it, and this is how you get done quickly. It is all mise en place, just having everything ready, having everything there, but we're going to just make sure that we know and we can follow all the techniques that go along with what we're doing. All right. So we got our garlic. All right. We got a couple cloves. These are one of these really big cloves, so I'm only going to use two. I don't want the garlic to overpower. And again, you don't have to worry about the cut on the garlic because we're going to end up grinding this up to make our potage. And this actually goes great. So if you're in East Africa, especially in Ethiopia and on that line there on the east side, you would eat this with just a little bit of a flatbread. If you're in India, you would eat this with probably a piece of naan, right? Which is another type of flatbread, but it's the Indian style flatbread. Here we're going to use a little bit of a bolillo, believe it or not, because we're in Texas. All right, so we get that going. Oh yeah.
Question, Chef.
Question.
So, when you have varying sizes of ingredients, how do you know when to use how much of each thing?
So, various sizes of ingredients. When you mean various sizes, are we talking about various sizes in the cuts of it?
Varying sizes in the size of the potato,
okay,
the size of the onion, etc.
Size of the onion. Question is, when you have various sizes of your ingredients, such as the potatoes and the onions and everything else, how do you know how much to use? And here's the answer for that is because we're going to grind this up, the sizes won't matter because it's all going to be ground up. The only thing that matters is everything cooks properly to the point where it can be ground. So that's number one. Number two, if you were, say we were making a dish, maybe say like a rice pilaf or something, right? And in that rice pilaf, we wanted to make sure that all the veggies were cooked properly. We would make sure that they were all cut the same size. Okay, does that make sense? Depending on the application that you're going to be doing is what you need. So what I did is I cut the onions a little smaller than the potatoes because I want those onions to get some caramelization, so to pull those sugars out. And so that's why I cut those a little bit smaller. And if you notice the same thing with the garlic, it's chopped even smaller, and that's because I want the caramelization. Again, garlic and onions have a lot of sugar in it, natural sugar. A lot of people don't realize it because when you taste it raw, you don't get the actual sugar flavor from it. But when you cook them and it caramelizes, that is when you hear caramelization. All caramelization is normally bringing the sugars out of a dish. And there are other times when the caramelization is when you're adding sugar to a dish. But when you're sauteing and cooking onions and garlic, even carrots, they have natural sugar in them, and that's what you're bringing out to add flavor into your dish. So now what we're going to do, we got that going a little bit. You guys should be smelling it. I tell you, this is a really quick dish here. I'm going to turn my fire up a little bit. I'm about to add a little bit of veggie stock. Okay? But I want you to hear my pan. Can you hear the pan sizzle?
Yes, Chef.
All right.
So even with no butter, oil, or anything, it is not sticking to the pan.
No, because the natural oils that are in, speaking of which, all right, the natural oils that are in the onions actually keep it from sticking and burning. Problem is when you get burning onions is because your fire is too high and you actually let it caramelize it. So burning an onion really is just over caramelization. So you're just cooking it so long that the sugars come out. Now, once your sugars start coming out, the sugar itself will start to burn and toast. So you have to be very precise and watch it in this stage. That's why you see me. I'll keep moving. I think in the ingredients I said, make sure you keep stirring in the recipe. So there we go. Now we have a little bit of, if you look on the bottom of the pan, it's not sticking. That is called fond. All right? That's called fond, Fond. That is your flavor. So now we're going to add a little bit of liquid to it. Classically, that would be called deglazing the pan. All right? And when you deglaze the pan, what you're doing is, so you know how grandma used to make the gravy? And the pan gravy, she'd take those pan drippings off the chicken. She'd take the pan dripping off the turkey. And then she add that liquid into the pan, and she starts scraping it, moving around. That's what she's doing. She's deglazing and pulling the flavor out of the pan from the fond, Fond. All right. So while that's going, we're gonna let that come to a boil, and then we're gonna add the apple juice to it, guys. All right. While that's happening, so I just wanted to show you though. I just used a basic vegetable broth, commercially bought. You can make your own vegetable broth, and what makes a great vegetable broth, if you can just take some celery. All you need is a little celery. Heat your pan, get your celery in it, let it start to toasting and caramelizing. Add some water to that pan, let that come to a boil. Add a little bit of bay leaf or laurel leaf seasoning, which is still bay leaf. And then what happens is you just let that go for probably about a half an hour to 45 minutes, and you end up with a really, really nice veggie stock. All right. But I wanted to just show you, you can use a commercial stock because we're looking for flavors that's going to enhance an accompaniment, and we're not looking for flavors that's going to be so strong and take over. So remember, when you make that veggie stock, whatever veggie you use, and celery makes a great one, that's going to be the predominant flavor. Okay? Any questions so far?
Question, Chef.
All right, we're going to stir this now a little bit so that we can make sure that the bottom of the pan gets the glaze. And we're going to bring this up to a good boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to add the apple juice in. Now, you could add the apple juice now. I like to just wait a little bit so it gets a good boil so that I'm getting all those flavors that are in there, the garlic, the sweet potato, the onion, all that flavor start rolling. And then we'll add the apple juice, and it's going to marry with it together. And that's what we're looking for. So, again, we are moving right along. Oh, let's just say a couple things about this dish. There are things that we can do with this dish that are really good. You could add a little bit of coconut milk to it. You could add a little bit of turmeric to it, which is healthy for you. You can add a tiny bit of cinnamon, which is also healthy for you. You can add a little cardamom to it, which is healthy. You could actually, I put sage on here, and the funny thing is I couldn't find any fresh sage, which I thought was really weird. And so what I was going to do with the sage was I was going to fry the sage leaf itself and then put it right on the top of the soup. And that actually makes a really nice addition to it. All right. And so we're going to add our apples now and get those going. And I know I went a little bit out of sequence, but I didn't want the apples to get too much caramelized. I was really wanting to pull that sweet potato flavor out of this dish first before we added the apples, because of the fact that we're using an apple juice. I wanted to make sure that we get those. We don't want the apples to get too caramelized in there, and we're gonna go add those in and let that come down. All right. We'll cook those out. Yes.
Could we use a yam in this recipe instead of a sweet potato?
An American yam, yes.
American yam.
Basically the same thing. They are basically the same. And a lot of times it's the region that you're in that makes a difference of what you call a yam or a sweet potato also. So like I said, in the West Indies, they don't call them sweet potatoes. They call them yams. But they're white a lot of times. So, yeah.
Question, Chef.
Question.
You specifically said in the recipe a red, delicious apple.
Yes.
Was there any particular reason?
Yes.
Why?
Great question. Why did in this recipe I asked for a red delicious apple? Because one, the red delicious apple is a sweet apple. Your Granny Smith apple is what you normally use a lot of times in baking, but your Granny Smith apples are tart. Now, there's a lot of GMO apples out there, hybrid apples. You got Lady Pink apples, you have Jazz apples, you have all these different apples in your supermarket right now, in your markets. But here's the thing about that. We don't know what those apples really taste like. We know, over time and over from experience, the red delicious in particular is a sweet apple that has a good texture, a good crunch if you're eating it raw, but it also has a sweetness that we need in this dish. All right, so that's a great question. I knew that question was going to come about, but you could have used, if you like a pink lady, a gala apple, a gala apple, some people call it a Fuji apple. You can use any of those, but here's the thing: those apples are usually very expensive, right? Why would I want to use a very expensive apple that I'm going to cook to pull out the flavor and to grind up? So just a thought that Red Delicious is a time-tested product that we are accustomed to, used to, and we love. Now, if we were going to look for something tart, we may have used the Granny Smith, but we didn't want any tartness.
We left the skin on
Yes.
the apple.
Yep, I just explained again. So skin on everything in this dish, because remember this dish is a dish from that is very, very down to earth, hearty, full of nutrients, keeping the nutrients. I would have left the cores in, but I know people would have been like, oh, he left the core in the apple, because we're not used to that at that point. But the skin, what's underneath that skin, has a lot of flavor, guys. It has a lot of nutrients, and it has just, we're trying to make sure that we're eating healthy, tasteful, and wholesome, and being as less wasteful again, because everything costs a lot. Even the skin. We don't think about it because you take that skin off, but if that apple costs you 99 cents a pound and you take 1% of that skin off, that apple now costs you a little bit more. It may be a penny more. It may be, 2 cents more per pound, though. If you buy 3 pounds, so just quantifying that and understanding the economics behind also purchasing of your foods and trying to use everything that you can. I was in a competition years ago. I won't tell you where. This is a famous place, and they gave me a mystery box. They used to do a lot of these competitions. They gave me a mystery box, and in the mystery box, you had to use everything in the box that they gave you and all of it. Okay, and in that box, just one of the particular items that I had was plantain. So everybody knows what plantain or plantanos or plantains, whatever you may call them, are, right? So in the plantain, it had I had to do everything. I had to do something with with everything in the box. So that meant even the peel of the plantain. So we think of a peel of a plantain it's rough, it's tough, it's not edible, right? So I had to use my creative culinary skills very quickly. What I did was I peeled the plantain, I sliced it the way we would at home, and I did a quick fry on it. Well, it was a saute like we would do at home. And I took the peel and I took the membrane that was underneath the peel out, and I took the rest of it and I sliced it really thin. I put it in a pot with a little bit of with water. I let it boil. I add a little bit of ginger to it, and then I added sugar. Why did I add sugar? I added sugar to get it to caramelize, and the peel became a caramelized plantain peel that I actually was able to stand up, and it stood up like cake on top of the sliced plantain. I actually won that competition because of that dish. So again, thinking about sustainably using food products. We have to get more and more sustainable and less wasteful when it comes to food. Okay, guys?
So we could have used the apple core in
Yes,
our.
we could have. And the seeds and everything. Could have threw the whole apple in everything. I would have put everything in there but the stem. But the stem. Reason being, we're going to cook it all the way down and we're going to grind it all up. Right? Makes sense?
Yes, chef.
So I knew this was going to be a pretty quick class, and I knew I wanted to talk to you about your grandma's, not your auntie's sweet potato, right? So I wanted to do something that's going to be pretty quick also. And this is a dish that I've been using variations of it, and I didn't put the recipe in there because I didn't want people to feel pressure to get items. But I want you to take a look at this dish that we're going to do now, and I'm going to teach you a couple of different things about some misconceptions about different spices. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a curried sweet potato. Okay? So, two things. One of the great things to do is to slice the sweet potato again. Don't peel it. Slice your sweet potato, put it on a pan, toss it with a little bit of cumin, a little bit of ginger, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of garlic, drizzle some olive oil over it, and roast it off. That's real simple, really good. And when it comes out, you'll be like, I never thought we could use a sweet potato that way. Yes, you can. And it tastes amazing. There's no sugar on it. There's no butter on it. There's nothing on it to change the nutrient value of the sweet potato. Sweet potatoes, I didn't mention, are high in carbohydrates. So we know sweet potato being a quote unquote starchy vegetable, but it's really a tuber, is what it really is. It's not even a vegetable, it's a tuber. And so, but the carbohydrates that are in it are not bad carbs. So you have good carbs, you have bad carbs. They're actually good carbs. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do a coconut curry sweet potato. You ready for it?
I don't know, chef.
All right. All right, here we go. So we're gonna let this cook down a little bit. And the great part about this soup also is you can add as much liquid or reduce it as far as you want to go. Right? We're just gonna cook this. I'm gonna slow it down now because we got a nice melange of flavors growing in there. Everything is coming together. Apples are in there. We need to add a little bit of apple juice. And then we're gonna slow it down a little bit. And again, this is a roadmap to getting to the end. So you can add whatever you want. You could even add some coconut milk into this, which would be an amazing addition. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this apple juice.
How much apple juice, chef?
On the apple juice, the recipe calls for about 1 cup. I'm gonna add a little more than a cup because it's a nice full pot here, and it's gonna cook, and we want to get everything. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to say: sweet potatoes do not take that long to cook, guys. I know Auntie puts her sweet potatoes in the oven for about 2 hours, 3 hours. Get it going. They don't take that long to cook. All right.
How are peanuts doing, chef?
Peanuts should be ready. I haven't heard it beep 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 yet, but they should be. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Look at that. Nice texture. Nice crunch. Mm. Mm-hmm. There we go. We're gonna set these aside. We're gonna chop and these. We're gonna go as a garnish on top of the soup again to add a little texture with a little bit of sliced apple in there. Thank you for letting me know. My crack staff let me know that how are the peanuts doing. So we're good. They're good. Just in time too. A little bit longer. Well, actually, because they're raw too, they'll take a good time to do. Good. Woo-hoo. Take me out to the ball game. Give me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I never come back.
Go Stros!
No. All right. So again, Sweet potatoes, you can cut them any way you want. You can cut them into discs. You can cut them into little cubes. You can cut them into, I'm just going to cut these into half moons because I want them to hold up in the dish a little bit, okay? So I'm going to cut the end off because I don't want the little bread on the end. Just going to do about a quarter of an inch, a half inch this on it.
Jeff, you mentioned curry.
Yes.
What is curry?
So curry as a seasoning is a blend of seasonings, and it can be like, everybody has their own personal blend of seasoning. Everybody has their own personal blend of seasoning. So curries, but they normally start with turmeric. And then depending on the region, the area, that they can have a number of different seasonings in it. But turmeric, garlic, sometimes a lot of times people put different peppers in it, ground up peppers in it. And that's why people tend to think curry has to be hot. It does not have to be hot. Then you also have curry as you'll hear curry paste, or you'll hear curry as a dish. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to use curry seasoning to create a curry dish. So like Thai food, they have, different curries. You have red curry, you have yellow curries and things like that. Again, that's just the different paste the different seasons that they use, and they'll grind them and create a paste out of it and then use it to cook, to make a dish. So that's what, when you say curry. So in East India, the curries are a little bit, can be hot depending on, I think the northern Indians have a milder curry than the lower part of India. They're spicier, and don't quote me on that one. I'm just off the top of my head. In the West Indies, the islands, the Caribbean, they have different curries. So in Trinidad, you have a different curry than you have in Jamaica, than you have in Haiti. So curries um, are pretty much from what region they're from. What I use just a basic curry powder. I don't make my own curry, but a basic curry powder. And from that curry powder, I'll adjust the seasonings. Sometimes I'll add cardamom. Like this one, we're going to add a little ginger to it. Sometimes we'll add cumin. It depends on what I want that flavor to be at the end. But the base of your curries is nine times out of 10 are going to be some turmeric, especially if they're coming from the Middle East or India. So I'm going to give this a stir again. Oh yeah, it's cooking down nice. All right. Now it creates a nice gentle roll. Any other questions? I'll come back and I'm going to be slicing my sweet potatoes up again. Another thing is sweet potatoes go a long way. A little bit of sweet potato goes a mighty long way. And sweet potatoes over the centuries have actually sustained a lot of cultures from famine. And so again, that's to show you how easy they are to grow in certain areas, but also how far one sweet potato can go to feed someone, and the nutrient value of that potato, of that sweet potato. All right. There you go. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get our other pan going over here. Just going to get this going. And we're just going to get this a little bit warm. All right. We're going to add a tiny bit of onion to this. On this dish, we're going to add just a small amount of onion. And in particular, because we don't want the onion to be too predominant. What I want from the onion, I want the sugar, is what I want to come out. All right. Not necessarily the onion flavor. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm not gonna put any oil in the pan. Okay. Gonna let that go. So here's our little bit of coconut milk. Here's our little bit of curry. And then we got a little bit of ginger. And if you notice again, when you're talking about clean cuisines, it's very, very limited spices. I believe a good, even if you're buying an item from the supermarket, 5 ingredients or less on your ingredient deck, you're normally going to have a pretty decent unpasteurized, unprocessed, not pasteurized, but unprocessed. It's least amount of processed that item will be. 5 items or less, and then you won't get into. Normally, when you get to that sixth item, you start getting into the words you can't pronounce, and then you know you're getting into some processed product. All right, so kind of, and again, it might be a little more expensive. What I'm learning at this age now is you're either going to pay for it at the supermarket, or you're going to pay for it in your doctor's office. And if we think about that early on, it'll be better off in life. All right, so think about that. You're going to pay for it in your supermarket, or you're going to pay for it in your doctor's office. And whenever you can purchase to as close to the food source as possible. Farmers markets, vegetable stands. Even when you want to get your meats, you can go to a wholesaler or even a processor, meat processor, as close as you can get to that product. We have to get back to that here in America because that's what's really doing us in is all of the additives that are going into our food, and partly that happens because our food is so far away from where it's going to be consumed. So just think about that. Just food for thought, guys. All right. All right. So touch my pan. Don't you do that, guys. Don't do that. But that pan too hot, your fingers will stick to it. Trust me. In my life, I've had it happen more than once. All right. Putting my onions in. Ooh, do we hear that? You hear those onions? Nice
Yes,
and light.
chef.
All right. When we were talking about this class, guys, we were trying to figure out something to do that was, autumny and kind of in the season. And we were talking about pumpkins, and we were talking about, different things to do. We could have did a really different things with pumpkins. Again, that pumpkin in the Caribbean and in Central America, you'll hear the word calabaza, and now those are pumpkins or squashes, and we could have done something with those. And then we talked about it. You know what? Let's do something that America that we are familiar with in a way that we're not familiar with eating it. Okay, but without using too many different items that we would have to go and find or search out or go to those markets that are uncomfortable for us to be in sometimes. All right. So on this, I got my curry. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add some curry. So on this dish, I like to add about 2 parts curry to 1 part ginger powder. Now, you say, but why not fresh ginger? The reason that I don't like fresh ginger in a dish like this is because you never know how strong the ginger is, if it has good flavor profile or not until the dish is done. And then it's too late. Okay? So this is what we're doing. I hear my onions cooking over there, and I don't expect anybody else to be cooking any onions right now. How's everybody's soup going?
It's bubbling, chef.
It's bubbling, baby. It's bubbling. All right. That's looking pretty good. Starting to smell good. Hey, my cameraman said it's starting to smell good. That's what you want. So we know the psychology behind eating. So the last thing that we taste with is our mouths, guys. Remember that. That is the very last thing we taste with. The first thing you taste with, it's a toss-up between your nose in your eyes, because some food you can smell from a distance and go, that smells good, and then see it and go, it don't look so great, but it smells so good, I'll try it. Or there's some food that you get up on and you look at it and, that looks good, and then, that smells so good. So those are the first two things you eat with. The last thing that you taste with is your buff. All right? So now, I've got a little bit of caramelization here at this onion. Not too much. I don't want it totally caramelized. I just want to pull out some of the sugars. If you can see the bottom of the pan there, that's just your caramelization. That's flavor. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add our sweet potato right in there. All right? That sweet potato is going to start picking up some of the caramelization from the onion. So this is sweetness. The onion is giving sweetness to this dish. To both of these dishes, by the way. All right? Now, while that's going, we're going to go ahead and add our spices on it. 2 parts curry powder, 1 part ginger powder, right? Right on top. Now, one of the things we could have done that I didn't want to show you this time, because I want you guys to start to like this flavor profile and things like that before we start talking about toasting it, because a lot of times when I'm using dry spices like this, I'll toast them a little bit. But if you haven't done it or you're not used to toasting, you can toast it to the point where it becomes bitter. So that's why I didn't want to put it on in that fashion, okay? All right. Any questions about anything?
No questions, Chef.
Can you smell that, cameraman? Yeah. Yeah. A little different, right? Watch how it's going to change, though. Let that cook just like that for a minute. Now we're going to grab our coconut milk, right? And you can buy pretty much any brand of coconut milk. Do not buy Coco Lopez, all right? And that's why I got the Goya, so you can see coconut milk. So it's leche de coco. It is not Coco Lopez. Goya makes a Coco Lopez. Coco Lopez it's got sugar in it, and it's designed for pina coladas and things like that. All right, so make sure that when you purchase a coconut milk, and they have different brands of coconut milk. I just got the Goyas because I wanted to make sure to let you guys know that there's different ones. All right.
Question, Chef.
Yes, ma'am. Question.
Coconut milk.
It is actually the liquid that when you crack a coconut open, so there's coconut water that comes out, and then they take the meat, the white part inside, they grind it all up together, and that becomes your coconut milk. Like almond milk, you take almonds, grind them up, squeeze liquid water through them, and then they squeeze them down. That becomes your almond milk. So you can do cashew milk, all kinds of nuts and things. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go right in. All right. And we're going to go ahead and let this go. And again, guys, these are very simple recipes, as you see. We're not adding a lot to these at all, right? In this dish here, you could add a little bit of tofu, which actually a little bit of tempeh is good in here also, because it'll give it more of a meaty flavor if that's what you wanted. Chickpeas, kale, collards. You can do so much with all of these dishes, both of these dishes here today. All right, and we're gonna let this go a little bit. We're gonna raise that temperature there and get it to come to a boil. Then we'll reduce it down, and then we will actually be ready to taste. Okay, we're gonna taste our soup right now, guys. We're gonna test to see if. So, what do you guys think was gonna take the longest to soften and cook in here?
The sweet potatoes.
That's right. But you guys can see what I can do. I can cut right through that sweet potato. See that? That's they're cooking up good. And you're right. Now let's taste our liquid. And remember, I didn't add anything in here. I could have added cardamom. I could have added so many different other spices, sage, even rosemary. Those are hearty, hearty spices. But I want you guys to see what how simple it is to make something good using the things that we have, that we normally have on hand, and maybe adding one or two different items. It's very simple. I know we all get sweet potatoes this time of year. We waiting to throw all that butter and sugar on them and everything else. I know. I like it too. Yeah, here we go. Mm. Ooh. Ooh. Hmm. All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So, Chef, what
Yes.
are you tasting? Because there's no salt, there's no sugar, there's no seasoning.
That's right.
What are you tasting?
I am tasting the natural flavor. That's what it's all about. So I just the question was, what am I tasting? Because there's no salt, there's no sugar, there's no butter, there's nothing. What am I tasting? I'm tasting the natural flavor of the apples, of the sweet potato, of the caramelized onion. That's your sugar. That's the sweetness is coming from the almonds. You got sweetness and flavor coming out of the apple. The sweet potato will soon start giving off its own particular flavor profile. But it's so clean, guys. It is so clean and it's so natural and that's the key. That's what I wanted this dish to be, especially going into our heavy eating season of the holiday, how we can still eat well, make things good, and we don't have to have all the extra stuff that's gonna be detrimental to our health down the road. Take it from a big guy. I'm starting to learn a lot more about how to eat, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I've known it, but at this age now, I have to apply it. I have to, and that's what I've been doing. But by applying it, I'm not losing. You saw my face when I tasted that. I'm not losing anything. I'm not losing anything but the negativity that's in there. This is all natural. It's just we have been conditioned to think that well, firstly, we've been conditioned to think that everything has to taste like salt. First of all, salt was never intended as a seasoning, primary seasoning. Salt was originally designed as a accompaniment seasoning. We have created this world where salt is the primary seasoning, and not only that, the salt that we most of us use isn't even natural. It's actually a chemical compound. Okay, so beware of all of that. When you see the sodium and things like that, that means you're talking salt, 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 salt. All right. Uh, Even with chicken and pork and certain items, when you see something that'll say 15% solution, 20% solution added, what they're telling you is they've added a saline solution pumped into that protein product. Is normally protein. And what they do, why they do that, they don't do that to make us healthy. They don't do that to enhance even the flavor of the product. Why they do that? They do that to increase the weight of the product, because everything we purchase is, especially in protein, is by the pound. So if they can add a 15% solution of salt in water, which they call saline solution, they're adding 15% weight to, so an item that's 10 pounds, we add 15% to it, what does that come to? 11 and a half pounds, right? But you're still paying $3.99 a pound. So you're actually paying $3.99 for a pound and a half of water and salt. So you have to be aware of those situations. I know I might get shot when I leave here from the poultry producers of America. But seriously, we have to become conscious of these things, because these things are driving our lives. They're driving, and we have children that we're all becoming less and less healthy because of the food. I mean, we always have, it's not about weight, it's not about size. It's about what's going on inside your body. And so a lot of times, our children are suffering from these different diseases or conditions that we never occurred to us to have as children. They're older people's conditions, but our children are suffering from it because of the products that we're feeding them, because of the food that is, and I wouldn't say feeding it because I don't want you guys to feel guilty when it's the product that's available, and that's the issue. Now, on the other hand of that, we can have some accountability with these products because maybe we need to look for different sources and that's what I'm trying to show this way, and not sauces but sources, SOURCE, of food, maybe getting more and more, like I said, closer to where the food is grown. Even in the cities, they have farmers markets. They have different places. Are you paying a little bit more? You might be, but there's also, I tell you, and I work for a nonprofit now, but there's also other ways of subsidizing your food purchases by buying healthy. So you guys need to look into those also because they have something called Food RX, which will help. So there's things that we can do that we need to start doing if we want to have healthy children and grandchildren and moving forward. And also, it'll get to the point where it's going to hold the major producers accountable, and they'll have to make those adjustments because at the end of the day, they're going to lose money, and that's what it's all about. All right, I'm going to take these peanuts. We toasted up, and you see some of them now have husk on them, the shells. See that? We toasted it, and it just has shells on it. When we put them in, we couldn't even see the shells. They were all hooked to it, right? Look at that. So we're gonna just squeeze those husks off. I think when we opened it up, it was like, and I think before we started, it was like, hey, these don't even have a husk on them. You remember I said that?
Yes, chef.
Look at that. By toasting them, it released the oils, which is releasing the husk that you can't even see or feel. So that's a good thing. So we're gonna keep just loosen these up a little bit. We're gonna chop them up, and then we're gonna set them aside. And we're gonna dice up some apple because we're almost there. We're getting there. Anybody have any questions about anything so far?
No question, chef.
All right. Anybody think what we're doing is not viable?
It's viable, chef.
Or do we want the sweet potato with the marshmallows and the sugars?
Sometimes, chef,
And that's
not all the time.
And that's good. Sometimes it's okay. Moderation. That's a beautiful thing.
So the shell or the husk of the peanut is not good.
No, I'm not saying it's not good, but I'll say when we chop it, it won't chop all the way up for us for this process. And you don't want to have that in your mouth. The mouth feel is not good. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
You ever tasted the husk of those peanuts?
Yeah, not good.
Not a good mouth feel. And again, mouth feel is important. And it's not even texture; it's mouth feel. It's two different things. We just put a little rough chop on these. Oh, they smell so good. Oh man, oils. I'm gonna have to give my cameraman one of those. Tell me what you think. No salt on them. There's nothing on these. No oils, no salt, or anything. Hmm? All natural, 100%. This is from a bag of raw peanuts. I'll show you the bag in a minute. I showed you the nuts. We could have did the same thing. If we did a pumpkin with calabasa, we could have took the seeds out and roasted the seeds. And actually, I'll roast seeds of it sometimes, and I'll put different seasonings on it. Never salt, but different seasonings to give different flavor profile and sprinkle it on it. But here, we're just going to go ahead and put this here. And we're going to use this as a garnish on top of our soup, our potage, with a little bit of bread.
Those are good, even without the salt and
You
stuff.
don't need it. You toast it. The oils are. I'm telling you, the oils are wonderful inside of those. So my producer just said, "Man, those are good without the salt or anything on them." Again, salt is something that we have been conditioned to think that we need, that we have to have, and we don't have to have it. We just do not. Does not have to be in everything. I'm not telling you salt does not have a place. What I'm telling you is it doesn't have to be in every place or in place of. Make sense?
Yes, chef.
All right. Gonna save that for the soup. Then we'll cut some apple. I'm not cutting the apple right away for the soup because I don't want the apples to brown on us, right? And I don't want to have to add anything to it, including any lemon or anything, because I just want all the natural flavors that we have to offer. These items have to offer. All right, so this is your curry. How's that look, guys?
That looks good, chef.
Curry sweet potato, coconut milk, a little bit of ginger. And let that go a little bit longer. Let it cook. Let it get to the soup in a minute. Looks like we're almost there. Is anybody cooking with us today?
Of course, chef.
All right. How's it looking, guys?
Looking good.
How's it smelling?
Even better.
All right. Let's taste this one more time. Yeah. Even the starch from the apples and the potatoes start to thicken your potage up, even in the pot. So we're gonna run ours into a food processor just so that we can get the thicker flavor thickness to it. If I had a hand emulsifier, I could do it right in the pot. But we don't have one. You can actually put it into. You could actually just leave it in the pot. And you could smash it up with a whisk and whisk it also. All right. But if you do that, you're still gonna have some of the skins from the apples in it, but they'll be real nice and soft. It won't be hard. The same thing with the skin of the sweet potato. I'm about to taste this here. Let me see. Let's take this. Let's take a smell of it first. Oh, yeah. You know what this smells like? It smells like fall.
Mm.
This smells like fall. That's exactly what it smells like. Oh, man. Man, that's good. You taste the sweet potato. Starch is coming out of the sweet potato now. You taste the apple. You taste the sweetness of the onion. You don't realize it's onion, but we know it's onion because we put it in there. But then you also taste the sweetness from the garlic now, which wasn't there when I tasted it a minute ago. So all of this is about layers of flavor by allowing by putting things in separately instead of dumping everything in the pot. What you could have done, we could have taken every item, put it in that bowl, dumped it in the pot, put all the liquid on it, and just let it go. You could do that. But when you do that, you don't get the layers of flavor. You don't get the complexity. You don't get the the umami of all the flavors that go into it. So now, a minute ago when I tasted it, a few minutes ago I tasted the apple and the onion caramelization. Now I'm tasting the starch of the sweet potato, and then it hit me right on the end, the sweetness of the garlic. So everything is starting to flow together nicely. That's what we want. All right. So remember that layers of flavor, guys. I'm gonna have to taste a little bit more of these peanuts, guys. Mm.
Your peanuts seem to have disappeared, chef.
I think they're disappearing. Uh-huh. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get ready to grind this up. Let me check this piece of sweet potato here. All right, don't try this at home. This could be dangerous, guys, okay? Oh, look at that. See that?
It just broke us,
Fall
chef.
apart. So that we said that was gonna take the longest to cook, right?
Yes, chef.
All right, so let's get ready. I'm gonna grind some of this up. And again, as you grind it and after you grind, you can add more liquid If you want to put it back in the pot and let it reduce some more to make it tighter, that's entirely up to you. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little bit of apple, and this is for texture. It won't be much flavor, but it'll be texture just with the peanuts on top. I don't know, you guys are going peanuts and apples, sweet potatoes. Now, if you're living up north, you could do this with walnuts. Here in Texas, you could do it with pecans. West Coast or just the South, the peanuts. I like the peanuts, guys. Okay, so small dice. Now here's where you want to have a small dice. Small dice on your apples. All right. And this is going to be for garnish. All right, here we go. So I'm going to come back over here. And we have a small food processor, which is nice for what we're going to do. I'm going to take this pot off. Everything is done with this. We're going to let our curry keep cooking. You know what we're going to do with the curry? We're going to add a little bit of apple juice to that right before we pull it off. And that's going to cut some of that curry acidic flavor from it. That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to slide this over to the side. And I'm going to grab a ladle. We got 2 bowls here. We're going to ladle this in. We're going to go down to the bottom. Make sure you stir it up good. See how we're stirring it? And again, you could put something green in there. You could put kale in there. You could put herbs, sage, like I said, sage, rosemary. Those are those hearty winter type of herbs, spices. You're gonna put a little nutmeg, a little cinnamon, a little cardamom. There's all these. I mean, there's no limit to what you can do with this, guys. Don't limit yourselves. All right, let's see what we get here. Pulse it. Look at that. Look at that. Does that look good?
Yes, chef. Mm.
A little bit more. Nice piece of everything in there. You see the body on that? There's no flour in there, no starch, no cornstarch, I should say, no additives at all. It's just that's the natural part of this dish. So we're talking healthy and so all right. Pulses. Mm-hmm. Now you can loosen this up. You can, like I said, if you want it looser, I particularly for a nice hearty day, I would like it nice and thick there. Nice body to it. Let me just You could add a little bit of if you want it, and you could add a little bit of sour cream on top of there. You could add a little bit. I mean, there's so much that you could do. So we're gonna add a little bit of apples right on top. A little bit of apples right on top. And let's add a little bit of toasted peanuts. So how does that look, guys?
That looks good, Chef. I was skeptical.
I know you were. All right. Let's try a little different here just to see. Oh, yes. Mm. Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay. Now, ooh, I like that. If we were in East Africa, we'd actually have a little bit of naan bread to go with it. I'm sorry, we would have a little bit of the flatbreads, Ethiopian flatbreads. If we were in India, we'd have a little bit of naan, and they wouldn't even use a spoon for this. They would just dip their breads in it and eat it with their hands. I'm gonna give you, because we're in Texas, I'm gonna give you a little bit of bolillo, which is a Mexican, like a club roll almost. And this is what you have. All right, manja manja abundanza. I would like for my illustrious staff to try it and tell me what they think. All right. I'm going to finish this up over here. Oh, yeah. This is going pretty good. Sweet potatoes. Oh, this is almost ready also. So we said we're going to add a little bit of apple juice to this. But when we add the apple juice to this, it's going to be at the end because we do not want the coconut milk to separate. So, with that being said, I didn't mention to you. So, curry and apple, well, East Indian curry, because this is the East Indian curries that we're using pretty much, are natural together. All right. All right. It's good. They look good. Any questions so far?
No question, Chef.
No questions. All right. All right. All right. If you need anything, so we're just waiting right now for the coconut milk curry to get done, and we're gonna those out.
Question, Chef.
Yes. Question.
You mentioned that this can be frozen and it
Yes.
keeps well.
Yes.
How would you go about preparing it and then freezing it?
So we prepare it the same way, without putting the nuts or apples on top. And you can put it into your any kind of storage, your Tupperware or any kind of storage dish. I'm sorry, I'm off camera a little bit, but doing some stuff over here. And the best thing to do is I would put it in portions and just serve and keep it in portions. That way you can pop it into your microwave in whatever portion size, the little maybe a little 8 ounce or 16 ounce, 8 ounce or 16 ounce plastic container, like you get at the Chinese restaurant with soup in it, and you can freeze it that way. Pop it in your microwave and heat it, and then add your whatever condiment you want to put on top of it once it comes out. And it holds well in the freezer, and it won't separate, and it won't anything like that. So yeah, that's a great question. How would you store it? Okay, so we're almost ready with our coconut curry. Hmm. Oh yeah, yep, it's ready to go. And notice how fast, I mean, these things don't take a long time to cook, guys. They really don't. Man, just a little bit of apple juice. And then we're going to plate these. All right. So I cook these just till the sweet potatoes are fork tender, so that they do not smash up. All right. So this is what we do. Bring it over. We're just gonna plate some here. Tell me how that looks.
That looks good, chef.
And again, this is a simple dish. You can do it. This can be a side dish. This could be a main dish. It can be an entree. If you add some like chickpeas to it, or some white beans, or some kale, you're really rolling in the vegan atmosphere. And look at the amount that you can make with how many potatoes did I use, guys?
2 potatoes.
All right. Put that right over the top. All right.
And this last dish, chef, tell us one more time what the extra recipe and dish were.
Just because. Just to show you another way that we can use a sweet potato without adding all the sugars and butters and oils, and achieving something that hopefully you'll enjoy. It's healthy, a lot of the spices in it. And again, to show you that curry does not have to be hot. Okay. We can even do when we do, which we will do at some point, a chicken curry. I'll show you how we sweat it down, so you don't have to fry it or anything like that. Again, clean, even though it's chicken, it's poultry, but it's clean cooking. We're not adding anything to it. No oils and no fats and no extra sugar, no salt. All of these things. I'm going to try to taste this one. I know this is different for a lot of us, but I want you all to have an open mind and an open palate to know that the world, just to know, have an open mind and an open palate to know that the world is a large place, but yet it's very, very small, and we can tap into everything. Just because we've been doing it one way for so long doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but it does mean that it's not the only way. With that being said, I want you guys just open your mind and open your palate. Thank you. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. And again, if you want to add more apple juice to it, more coconut milk to it, you can do. The great part about these things is you can do whatever you need to do without compromising our health. All right. So I think we are we're at the end of where we're of this episode of Cooking with Carrington. I know it was faster than our normal ones. So just stay tuned and look forward to our next episode, which we will put out soon to let you know when. We thank you for coming with us, coming for this ride along, taking the voyage, and knowing that there's some different cuisines that we all use the same thing. So thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Send all your questions. Send all your questions to cookingwithcarrington.com. And just remember, it's always a party in your mouth. So come aboard and let's dance. Thank you.